Look at any collection of ancient spells, and you'll find the vast majority call upon the gods, personifications of natural and supernatural forces abound in mythology. Mythology that forms the backbone of the occult. What do the gods have to offer us in the form of magic? Hey folks, this is James, aka Merrick, back with another video about basic concepts in magic. These types of videos don't do great on my channel, which I find perplexing. I've been spending some time on Reddit recently. I know, it's kind of a sausage fest. Of course, you get people who just love to tear each other down. It's the internet. But I've also been surprised by how many thoughtful and well-written posts there are. And maybe that's what attracts me to it, because it seems like Reddit doesn't discriminate between content that's just pictures and videos and ones that are just text. It doesn't try to limit the character count and lets people actually present nuanced ideas. My confusion comes from what seems to me on Reddit a lot of people asking questions about well-covered concepts of magic. I know I sometimes confuse my audience. What the hell is this channel about? On one hand, it's highly specialized information on ancient Egyptian practice. On the other, it's got this crazy emergent magic stuff. As I've said from the beginning, this is a channel about magic. All of it. Or, in truth, anything that piques my interest and things in which I have some depth of knowledge. While I don't really care about popularity, I do what I want, it does seem there's a thirst for knowledge on subjects like this, and this is one which I can speak from some experience. Another thing that drives me to cover topics like this is that I feel I have a unique way of speaking about them. I try to be the Alton Brown of magic. If you're unfamiliar, Alton Brown is a TV cooking personality who has a long-running series called Good Eats. What makes Brown's show unique is that he didn't just show you how to cook things. He explained why it's done that way. And I think that kind of knowledge expands people's horizons, where they can take that information and confidently make their own thing, which is what I've always advocated for in magic. And maybe part of the reason I think that a lot of people turn away from this channel because, yes, you're going to have to do some fucking work. Anyone who says they can tell you the secret is full of shit. The first question you need to answer is, why involve the gods in my magic at all? It's a good question because ultimately you don't. Even if you believe they exist, you don't need to include them. Many traditions posit that the power of magic resides in the magician, not from an outside force. Perhaps you think the gods are all assholes. One can hardly blame you for that perspective. Mythology is rife with gods misbehaving, committing atrocities, and being downright hostile. Personally, it's why I like paganism, because it gives you a lot of gods to choose from, and you can pick the ones that you find most tolerable. But almost all gods have been known to be capricious to some extent. Even so, no one says you have to be nice to the gods to get what you want. More on that later. Perhaps you don't believe the gods exist at all. They're all figments of our imagination. That's fine as well. You can still do magic. Mind you, it limits the number of traditions you can build upon, as most do have mythological beings who we would refer to as gods. Even then, you can still work with gods. I don't want to get into the models of magic again, so go watch that video if you need to. But if you follow the psychological model, gods can still be a part of your practice. Something that reinforces themes in the collective unconscious. As Peter Carroll once said, it's easier to quell a sea storm through our conception of Poseidon than through force of will alone. The gods grant you agency, even if just as a way to access the subconscious. Once again, it comes down to how you think magic works. I can't tell you. All I can say is what works for me. I like the classics. I like tradition. I like history. And almost all historical magical traditions include a belief that the spirits are objectively real. That's the perspective most of this video will take. And of course, I'll be using the ancient Egyptian tradition in most of my examples. But the points I will make can apply to many ancient traditions. Now to the subject at hand. In many traditions, the veneration of deities is just a given. Move in occult circles and you'll experience conversations on which deities people prefer. You'll find this mostly in New Age pagan religions, even if they have a unified conception of God and goddess. But you'll find plenty of it in magic-centered traditions as well. Here's where we need to know when to split hairs and when not to. You may use different terminology, but I'm going to need to at least define my term. Let's point out the elephant in the room: religion. I've said a lot on this subject, but I think it's worth repeating. I take the perspective of most ancient cultures, as they had societies where the power of magic was not questioned. To ancient people, there is virtually no difference between religion and magic. I believe in modern times, we need to expand our views on what religion is, which for most of us in the West is the Judeo-Christian perspective, which sees religion as a way to connect with the divine and live in accordance to the will of God. What you want is unimportant. What's important is God's will. People, of course, will beseech the Godhead in the form of prayer, but what you get is always God's will. You have no agency in the matter. For ancient people, not so much. Notice how I use the word venerate and not worship, as worship implies a relationship where one player has all the power and expects only obedience. Nowhere is this more exemplified than in the youngest main branch of the Judeo-Christian current, which is Islam. In fact, we should probably call it the Judeo-Christian Islamic current, but we all know why we don't do that. The term for a practitioner of Islam is Muslim, which means one who submits. They are upfront on how this power dynamic works. On the other hand, in religions that have magic as a part of their core philosophy, you find veneration. Yes, the gods are powerful. Yes, the gods must be respected. You absolutely should think twice before you piss off a god, but not because the will of the gods is the only game in town. They just recognize that some gods are a bag of dicks, and they will smack you if you don't treat them nice. Something I pointed out in my video on spells of the ancient Egyptians: not only do magicians see the gods as beings that can be negotiated with, implying you have something to offer them. They can even be threatened into giving you what you want. Anyone remember this gem? I will trample down Busiris. I will throw down Mendes. I will depart for the heavens, and I will see what is done there. No offerings will be brought to Abydos until the gods remove all evil influence on my body. Let's break that down, starting with acknowledging this is J.F. Burgott's translation, which follows the annoying and racist practice in academia and popular culture, using Greek names for Egyptian proper nouns. Busiris and Mendes are cities in ancient Egypt. Busiris could be referring to Tiferet or possibly Jeddu, and Mendes, where that popular goat comes from, being Djedid. Probably towns where the god the spellcaster is threatening are venerated, which should really cheese them off. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea to bluff when dealing with the gods, but the ancient Egyptians like to swing it like mid. Does this spellcaster have the ability to raise a city? You do you, buddy. It's the second threat that I find most fascinating. I will depart for the heavens, and I will see what is done there. This implies that the gods have secrets they don't want you to know. Or maybe they just don't want you watching them in the bath. In any case, the gods don't want you to know what they are up to, and a magus has the ability to find out. Interestingly, this circles back to Jeremy Nadler's theory and shamanic wisdom of the pyramid text, which I talked about before, saying that Egyptian funerary literature wasn't just meant for use by the dead, but possibly based on journeying techniques for the living. Maybe time for you to practice some journeying so you know what the gods are up to, or can at least make good on the threat. Lastly, our demanding magician, who appears to be really sick and tired of being sick and tired, threatens to withhold offerings. Speculating on his ability to do that, well, most people tend to cough it up when the priests backed up by the pharaoh's men come to collect, so better run to the hills. Of course, there's a good chance the magus in question is a priest, in which case his compatriots may be quite irked by them withholding the offerings. The takeaway being, the gods need, or at least want, offerings. Good news for you, modern magus, as there's probably only about a dozen or so devotees of said ancient god within a 100-mile radius, which may give you more leverage. That's if, of course, you're giving offerings that may be withheld in the first place. Which brings us to one of the most principal interactions between gods and humans: offerings. A simplistic concept, to be sure. Give someone something and they are more likely to give you something in return, or at least not smack you down. But we're magical practitioners. We're not fearful beings. We're more interested in what we can get. While this seems to be a straightforward transaction, we all know that's not how it works. Seldom, in my and probably anyone else's experience, has an offering been given and the thing you wanted just arrives. We know there's complications at play here. I feel I need to state the obvious because I've seen too many people either claim that's how it works or ask questions like, if I give an offering of incense, will the Lord buy me a Mercedes-Benz? In our modern conception of economics, we expect donuts for dollars. How much incense do I need to get that Benz? Isn't a useful question, but you should keep it in mind. My wishful thinking would ask you to stop right here and go read Debt, the First 5,000 Years by David Graeber, which, for a lot of people, would teach them that a barter economy doesn't work like you think it does. Since that's unreasonable, I'm just going to have to break it down with the simple question, what do the gods want and what can they deliver? The answer to the first question can be found in tradition. What people in the past said pleases the gods. It seems that the line of reasoning they used was, what would I like to get? Food, drink, pleasing scents, etc. This could be immaterial as well. People like to be entertained. A dance or music can be an offering. The ancient Egyptians believed that just saying a god's name so that they will be remembered can be considered an offering. But you're a magician, and you want to know what they really want and what is it worth to them, which brings me to the crux of this kind of magical operation. And if you ask me, the crux of just about all magic, communication. Anyone remember the numerous times I quoted Gordon White, magic, if anything, is extra-dimensional diplomacy? No matter what you think of Gordon, he hits the nail on the head. You'll never know what the gods truly want unless you ask them. This requires subtlety, because you must open those lines of communication, which requires practice and skill. Altering states of consciousness to be receptive of these communications, learning useful divination techniques, learning about signs and portents, especially those associated with the god in question. Perhaps even following a system of correspondences like Kabbalah to recognize the meaning behind these things. My ultimate advice on the matter, look for synchronicities. Meaningful coincidences that seem connected but lack a clear causal relationship, often interpreted as signs or messages from the universe, especially when those coincidences are highly unlikely. Any individual synchronicity may not contain much useful information, but they are a strong indication you are on the right track. What can you get in return? According to some, the sky is the limit. The gods can do just about anything. But just like opening channels of communication, you're more likely to receive if you open channels suitable for getting what you want. And no, buying a lottery ticket isn't all that suitable. Not that I don't say a prayer on the rare occasions I play the Powerball. Better to start a business. Put effort into it. As I've said time and time again, the purpose of doing magic is not to produce a specific result. It's great when that happens, but it's rare. The purpose is to create a life where opportunities arise and are recognized, and obstacles are obvious and easier to avoid. While you're doing all this, you may find yourself building a relationship with the gods. There are those that swear by cajoling and threatening spirits to get what they want. That's just not me. In the end, it's difficult for me to even explain the relationship I have with the gods I venerate. It's something akin to friendship, maybe student and mentor. There's mutual respect and understanding. That, for me, is the ultimate goal. To somehow develop a reciprocal relationship with something that isn't human and exists beyond space and time as we know it. Now to take care of business. No, this isn't a sponsor deal. I've just been looking into ways to improve my videos, and I think the one thing I can do is get a subscription to Storyblocks. They provide stock photos, videos, and music, along with animations and sounds. It's $360 for a year, and since this channel makes me $0, I can't really justify spending that on my own. But you can help by going to my Ko-Fi page and give to the fundraiser I've started there. Spring is here, and things are picking up at Silky Screens, a print company I help run with my good friend Zentra L, making quality screen-printed garments the old-fashioned way. It's why my Scroll of Thoth merchandise is a whole lot better than the folks who use print-on-demand services. Today, I want to highlight a shirt that's been out for a while, designed by a Haitian artist, Arnold. He lives in Haiti. While I could just leave it at saying things are pretty rough there right now, that would be an insult. The horrors being inflicted upon the Haitian people have created untold suffering. It's an ongoing tragedy that's mostly ignored in the media. It's more than just the scars left by colonialism, more like open wounds caused by centuries of exploitation. I highly encourage everyone to go see Arnold's work on Facebook and buy something directly from him. Hell, educate yourself in general about the beauty and resilience of the Haitian art movement. You can also purchase one of the Debala Veve shirts that use his design. If we sell a bunch, we can afford to purchase the rights to more of his art for use at Silky Screens. Links to all that in the description. Of course, like and subscribe. Thanks for staying with me to the end. I'll see you next time.